As technology continues to further connect us all, it also continues to make our lives and homes increasingly vulnerable to hackers.
In a 2013 60 Minutes interview with former Vice President Dick Cheney, Dr. Sanjay Gupta asked him about the potential vulnerabilities of his own heart defibrillator. It's a plot that played out on the show Homeland.
In 2007, when Cheney needed his implanted defibrillator replaced, Dr. Reiner ordered the manufacturer to disable the wireless feature, fearing a terrorist could assassinate the vice president by sending a signal to the device telling it to shock his heart into cardiac arrest.
And it seemed to me to be a bad idea for the vice president of the United States to have a device that maybe somebody on a rope line or someone in the next hotel room or downstairs might be able to get into, hack into, and I worried that someone could kill you.
It might sound far-fetched, but years later, this scene from the Showtime drama Homeland showed just how it could be done to the fictional vice president.
I'm killing you.
What did you think when you watched that?
Well, I was aware of the danger, if you will, that existed, but I found it credible because I knew from the experience we'd had and the necessity for adjusting my own device that it was an accurate portrayal of what was possible.
So that was an interview in 2013. Today, the U.S. government is warning that devices hospitals use to administer intravenous drugs could enable hackers to alter the dosage of critical medications. On the phone now, Senior National Security Analyst Juan Zarate is with us to talk through these kinds of threats. Juan, we see these kinds of plot playing out on TV all the time. But how significant and widespread are these kinds of vulnerabilities?
Well, I think the vulnerabilities are incredibly widespread as the Internet of Things connect more and more devices, more and more of our systems. The good news is, and we've seen this in the notices put out by the Department of Homeland Security and the FDA, that we don't have any actual incidents. We don't see any patients having suffered from this particular vulnerability. But the risk is there, and I think that's why the warnings are out. And I think the reality that devices have embedded computer systems that can be potentially accessed, can be infected with malware, and that those systems are also connected to hospital systems, really does create a set of vulnerabilities to our healthcare system that authorities are now warning about.
So, Juan, what can these companies do to limit the vulnerabilities that their products present, and what can patients do to protect themselves?
Well, the FDA notice lays out a number of steps that the device manufacturers as well as hospitals can undertake to try to secure their systems. And in essence, it's a series of cybersecurity measures to ensure the integrity of their systems and to make sure that they can't be infiltrated, or at least to make it as hard as possible for things like malware to be introduced into devices. And actually, inappropriate users to be configuring the devices in ways that can be manipulated. So part of this has to do with classic security. Part of it is cybersecurity. Part of it is understanding where those gaps are in these systems. And I think some of this is just awareness building, where the more that our systems sort of are naturally interconnected, the technology is taking us there, the more we have to be aware that there are gaps and vulnerabilities that we need to patch. And that's what this notice is about.
Juan, look, this also points to a wider issue that goes beyond medical devices. This is the first time the FDA has suggested healthcare providers stop using a product due to a cybersecurity vulnerability. What does this say about the kind of increased threats we are facing? It's almost every day we're being warned about something we shouldn't use anymore because of this threat.
Yeah, it's unfortunately one of the dichotomies of the 21st century, where we have technologies that are bringing enormous capability, reach, and autonomy, at the same time creating enormous vulnerabilities to a series of actors who may be willing to use those vulnerabilities against us as citizens and as a country. And so I think the reality is, and you see this with the warnings about car systems that can be infiltrated as well and controlled from afar by hackers. The reality is that the more we are dependent on these interconnected technologies, the more that we are vulnerable to those who are willing to use those vulnerabilities against us. And it could be individuals, it could be organized criminals, it could be nation states. And I think that's unfortunately the era that we live in, an era of great promise and technology and interconnectedness. But that brings with it vulnerabilities, and we're seeing reflections of that now.
Sobering analysis. Juan Zarate, CBS News Senior National Security Analyst. Thank you.
Thank you.